is the Republican candidate for governor of Illinois, State Senator Bill Brady. This is Fox Chicago Sunday. Well, Senator, we all know that you want to cut 10% across the board from the state budget, but even Jim Edgar, who's endorsed you, says that's not enough, and he suggests that there may come a time when we need more revenue and perhaps a tax increase.
Well, it's not a matter of wanting. We owe the people of Illinois a balanced budget. And I've said we've got to start by cutting out a dime in every dollar of waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement. But I've also said we need an audit. I will ask the Auditor General, the General Assembly, to audit the books and find out where the mismanagement, waste, fraud, and abuse has taken place so that we can see a real picture of how we can best utilize the resources.
How much more than the 10% do we need to cut?
Well,
you don't need an audit because you know what the numbers are.
Well, it depends on the revenues, obviously. But we do know that Governor Quinn suggested that he had a $5 billion structural deficit, and we have to pay back some bills, and we want to provide some incentives to bring jobs back. So we'll have to deconstruct the entire thing, but we need an audit. We can't already afford.
So it's going to be 10% plus how much?
Well, it depends on the audit. We'll have to see where the audit comes in. But that's why I say we need a business audit. But we can't raise taxes because businesses are leaving Illinois today because the tax rates are already too high. Families are leaving. We need to keep people here.
And you want to cut taxes, actually.
I do. I eliminated the state tax penalty, which pushes retiring baby boomers out of the state. We need to make Illinois more competitive.
We wanted to talk about the budget a little bit later. We want to save a whole segment for that fiscal mess, which I'm sure you love talking about in our second segment. But we're going to talk a little bit about you first, because you're from downstate. Here we are in Chicago. There's always that downstate Chicago thing. What do you say to Chicagoans that are a little bit fearful of you, perhaps because you're not one of us?
You know, I don't know what you mean by the downstate Chicago thing. We love the city. I'm from Bloomington. My wife Nancy and I met at Illinois Wesleyan University and been married 28 years. Our two oldest children live in Chicago. Our daughter Katie is a nurse at Children's Memorial Hospital. Our son William is a third-year law student at DePaul. We still have our baby at home who's a senior in high school. But, you know, everyone who gets involved in Illinois politics realizes that Chicago is a very important part. We want Chicago to be the largest great city in the world. I think the mayor's done a great job of positioning as such. We want to continue that. It's one of our greatest strengths.
Do you think Chicago has too much political power in Springfield?
Well, if you look at all the leaders, they all come from Chicago. I think a balance is good. And I think I provide that balance, being from Bloomington, but understanding how important Chicago is to the state and how important it is that we all work together to bring jobs back, to balance our budget, and to stop the ridiculous talk about raising taxes.
Well, let me tell you about what all the guys and gals, because as you know, there's a simultaneous mayor's race taking place. And all the guys and gals thinking about running for mayor are looking at the cuts you're talking about. They believe that if you become governor, we're looking at thousands of teacher layoffs, much bigger class sizes in Chicago and in the suburbs. We're looking at a fare increase at the CTA and Metro, maybe 2 during the 4 years you'd be governor. And we're looking at higher property taxes for a number of the, both at the city, the county, and in these other governments. The Board of Ed having to raise property taxes.
Well, these decisions are going to be difficult. There's no question that we got to pay our bills on time. Governor Quinn promises money to schools and leaves them holding an IOU. Also counties and cities. As governor, I'll pass a budget that people know they can count on the revenues coming and then deal with how they play that out in the local level. It doesn't mean huge class sizes. It doesn't mean other scare tactics this governor is using. But I believe local units of government can use what resources we've got, balance their budget, and provide services if we live up to our promises. You take fare increases. We tried talking about a means testing so that not all seniors, regardless of economic status, would get a free ride. The governor backed away from it. We need politicians who are willing to stand up and do the right thing.
So you would keep the senior discounts or the free rides for those under the poverty level?
Yeah, the means test. We had a legislation.
Like about 22, 25,000.
It's a little higher than that, I think, that we came up with fair level. But we got to have politicians who are willing to be honest with the people and say, this is the way it's got to be.
How do you describe your leadership, your management style as a state senator, and how would your style be as governor?
Well, I want to bring people together. The policies that I've outlined, to bring jobs back to Illinois, to stop the ridiculous talk about tax rate increases. Even Mike Madigan and Mayor Daley says we can't raise taxes, to level the playing field in areas like work comp and medical malpractice, long-term planning, to utilize the great assets we have, not just rail, river, road, and bridges, but medicine, broadband, utility grids, energy, and to balance our budget to bring jobs back to Illinois and keep jobs here.
You say you want to bring people together, but do you think people in this state are divided right now?
I think one-party rule from one city has not worked well for the last 8 years. I think anyone would say that. There were huge divisions between Governor Blagojevich and Governor Quinn administration with the rest of the Democrats, now with Governor Quinn's administration and the rest of the Democrats. Huge divisions. The issues that I've laid out I don't think are partisan issues. I think they're common sense issues, approaches that other governors are taking around this state to move their state forward. And I believe the Democrats and Republicans will embrace this plan.
All right. Got a lot more to talk about. We're going to get to the budget in the next segment. Back with State Senator Bill Brady right after this. Hard to believe we're less than 6 weeks to Election Day. Our guest for this morning's entire show is State Senator Bill Brady, the Republican candidate for Illinois governor.
Well, let's get right into the budget. Specifically, let's start with a deal that your opponent has made with the state's largest public employee union, that they're going to make tens of millions of dollars in cuts, and he's agreed that there won't be any layoffs through 2012.
It's a sad day. It's another pay-to-play scandal. Governor Quinn took his budget director to the Ask Me endorsement session. Think about this, a government employee going to the Ask Me endorsement session, only to within 48 hours of that session endorsement to enter into the beginning of a contract that would tie the hands of the next governor. We're in serious fiscal crisis. We need to have all the flexibility we can to negotiate with the unions, the employees, to deconstruct and reconstruct.
But that takes us to you, as the next governor, not being able to close any facilities and not being able to lay off employees through 2012.
It is scandalous what this governor's doing, to tie the hands of the next governor.
Will you honor that agreement?
I hope I don't have to.
Well,
we need the flexibility.
Will you honor it?
I don't think he should be able to sign it. We've asked business groups, opinion leaders. Every editorial board that I've read in this state has opinionated against this scandalous act. I mean, this is smacks of pay to play, and the next governor shouldn't have their hands tied. So I'm hoping it's an illegal document. I'm hoping that the governor does not execute the second phase of it, and if he does, we need an investigation.
Speaking of Governor Quinn, he spoke the other day about your budget plan, and let's listen to what he has to say.
Or the lack thereof.
When I go before any group, whether it's a union group or a not-for-profit or a community group, I answer their questions. And I think you should do that as governor. And you should be specific before the election about how you're going to deal with the budget. I am. My opponent thinks it should be a top secret that the people of Illinois know a thing about his plans for the budget. I think it's insulting to the people of Illinois that if you're running for governor of the fifth largest state in the union, you think you can keep any and all facts about your budget plan from the people.
Well, he's saying, in effect, that's his way of saying you're hiding behind this audit that will be held one day. Don't you owe the people some rough estimation of what you're going to cut and where?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Governor Quinn's plan. Tax, borrow, spend, and still leave state vendors with $6 billion in unpaid bills and a structural deficit in excess of $3 billion. That's no plan. That's what got us into the mess we're in. $75+ billion in unfunded pensions, $20+ billion in bond indebtedness, and $6 billion in unpaid bills.
Stipulated, Your Honor, so stipulated. Now, can you? Is it really fair to voters to hide behind this idea that you're doing an audit?
I have not hiding. You absolutely have to do an audit. In business, you have to know where your resources are allocated. You know how many people you have.
How long is it going to do that audit?
How many secret deals are out there that we don't know about?
Right, but an audit could take months.
No.
Take a long time.
We've had discussions. The Auditor General can complete a business audit so that we know where the resources are allocated, how many people are employed, what their job description is, what the chain of command is, within 2 months.
Now, you went to Springfield 17 years ago.
I'll ask the General Assembly in the veto session to authorize that audit by resolution. In the meantime, we know that we have to immediately implement at least 10% savings. And then that audit will help us decide where we can best utilize the rest of the resources.
You went to the state Senate 17 years ago.
No, I started in the House.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. You went to the General Assembly 17 years ago. You mean to tell me that you don't have a pretty good idea where you're going to cut?
Yeah. We don't know who the $6 billion are owed to. Last year, they gave the governor a lump sum of $3 billion to spend as he wanted. We don't know where that money went. It would be unconscionable for me to lay this out without the real facts and figures. But you know what? When I'm governor, the people will know the real facts and figures because we're going to put spending online, we're going to put debts online, we're going to put the budget online, and we're going to bring transparency to the process.
Quinn has done some of that.
Oh, come on. Secret early release programs, 1,700 inmates, violent offenders released, secret pay hikes. If it weren't for the media, we wouldn't know anything. Secret tax increases. Now a secret agreement with AFSCME that is as scandalous as Rod Blagojevich's pay-to-play policies.
But so far what you've suggested in the 10% cuts, coupled with the tax reductions you'd like to see, everybody's saying that accounts for a couple $2 billion in savings. When we're with $13 billion budget deficit. The math, a lot of people are saying, just doesn't seem to add up.
We spend $56 billion a year. Governor Quinn has been spending that. 10% of that's $5.6 billion. Right. So there's other ways. The audit will show us.
If you cut taxes, cut revenues.
Yes, but it's not a monumental number. It's enough to keep retiring baby boomers here. It's enough to move purchases of gasoline to Illinois.
$13 billion hole.
And they will. Well, here's what you have to do. You have to build revenues into the budget to pay back the $6 billion in unpaid bills.
How do you do that?
Well, you reduce spending at a level about $2 billion more than you would need, so you could pay that off in 2 to 3 years. Hopefully, eventually, in the second year, revenues will grow. You know, we're the only state in the Midwest still in a recession. We're the only large state in the nation still in a recession. We can turn this state around. We have more to offer than anybody else. But the Quinn administration fails to realize that they're penalizing jobs and businesses. We need to live within our means to keep jobs here, private sector jobs, and bring more. And that's an important part of our policy.
Hold that thought, because we have another segment coming up with our guest, who's State Senator Bill Brady. He is the Republican candidate for governor of Illinois. Up next, we're going to ask him about the Tea Party movement.
You are watching Fox Chicago Sunday. Stay with
Our guest this morning is the Republican candidate for governor, State Senator Bill Brady of Bloomington.
And Senator, you appeared last weekend with Glenn Beck at a big rally out in the suburbs, which was largely characterized as a Tea Party movement. What is your relationship with the Tea Party?
Well, I have a good relationship with the Tea Party. They are Americans, Illinoisans, who are very concerned about the future of our country and our state. They think we are plagued in deficit and debt, taxes that are too high, and they're looking for leaders who will step in place and bring back a sense of personal responsibility, accountability, personal liberty. They want politicians who will not raise taxes, who will balance budgets and live within our means. They're essentially much of what we stand for.
Well, one of the things you said at the rally, and I want to read the quote here, is you said, we're going to take this state and this country back after this election. We'll take back the government. A lot of people are raising the question, take it back from whom?
Well, take it back from the political insiders, like Governor Quinn. Governor Quinn's been a political insider for 40 years, a career politician.
Were elected in the last election cycle, right? So take it back from the voters.
Well, Governor Quinn wasn't elected governor. Governor Quinn wasn't elected governor. Well, he was accidentally appointed governor, but he's a career politician. People are looking for citizen legislators to get involved. People who are involved in business and not career politicians. So we want to take our government back and make sure it's not an oligarchy and it's a democracy. And what's so exciting about all of the organizations that are getting involved is they're not going to take their government for granted anymore. And I think that's what we mean most of all. We're not going to sit on the sidelines, take our government for granted. We're going to be involved, be part of the democratic process.
You know, Governor Quinn has...
Small d.
Governor Quinn has been running ads, of course, complaining that you voted not to cut your own pay, even in this tough time.
Can I address that for a minute?
Sure.
It was part of a budget package that was so imbalanced that anyone with any sense of fiscal responsibility wouldn't have voted for it. Governor Quinn likes to mislead, distract, and distort the facts.
Have you given back some of your pay? Have you taken furlough days as a senator?
Yes.
How many days have you taken?
Oh, boy, I think it's about 12.
So it's about $79,000 a year that a senator gets, right? And then that would be...
I think it's a little less than that, but yes.
A couple thousand, about 75,000?
We in the legislature were more than willing to take furlough days to help reconcile the overspending.
All right. Now, as a Republican businessman, you like the free market. You've talked about eliminating a state minimum wage. Explain that.
What I've said is that for Illinois to be competitive, it would be better if the federal minimum wage were adopted, to put Illinois businesses at a level where our minimum wage is so much higher. But in reality, we'll hold the state minimum wage until the federal catches up.
But in 2003, you actually said, I think supply and demand in the marketplace determines the rate of minimum wage. I don't think governmental intrusion is as effective, indicating it would seem that you really don't believe there should be a minimum wage.
No, I've said all along the federal minimum wage is fine, but Illinois should not elaborate on it and put Illinois businesses at a disadvantage. Now, Governor Quinn and Governor Blagojevich have done that. And by the way, we have the highest minimum wage in the Midwest. We also have the highest unemployment.
And you think those two are connected?
There's no question. Economists will tell you that. But the fact of the matter is, because of the policies, the pragmatic approach is let the minimum wage let the federal minimum wage catch up, and then let's leave parity alone.
Can I ask you, I think most people are focused on economic issues right now, jobs and the economy, but some are concerned about social issues. Would you sign additional restrictions on abortion if they were approved by the General Assembly?
Well, you know I'm pro-life, and depending on what hypothetical legislation was put in front of me, I'd have to determine that. But you're right. This election is about economic issues. The people, frankly, even those that are deeply involved in the social issues, are more concerned about their checkbook, about their job, about the fiscal crisis that this state's in, and what we're going to do to rectify it.
One more social issue question, though. Would you march in the Gay Pride Parade if you were asked?
Oh, it depends on the schedule and the timing.
I mean, would you? If they asked you, would you?
Listen,
would you
I've never judged anyone by their sexual orientation, and I don't tend to start now.
All right.
Well, listen, give us the final 30 seconds here. Make the pitch to voters who don't know perhaps who you are, perhaps wondering about yourself. Why should they vote for you? We got about 20 seconds left.
Well, as you know, I care deeply about family. Nancy and I have the privilege of raising our family in Central Illinois and having an opportunity to build a business. I want to restore Illinois to those opportunities. Our children and grandchildren, those graduating from college, are worried about having an opportunity. People employed are worried about having an opportunity. I want to create a stable environment where the private sector will reinvest in Illinois, creating jobs for Illinois citizens. That'll be a win-win. Creating jobs, those jobs paying taxes, helping us reduce the deficit and debt, create a greater quality of life for the families of Illinois so that our children and grandchildren can raise their families here in Illinois.
All right, Senator Bill Brady, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for joining us for this.
And you know what? We'll have you back anytime you want to come back.
Thank you.
So please keep that in mind. Our reporters' notebooks are next.
This is Fox Chicago Sunday. Stay with us.